Hello, this is Vakar Alisha. I am a doctoral researcher at the Center for Applied Language Studies, University of Jyväskylä, Finland. In addition to that, I am also working as a lecturer in English at Merhan University of Engineering and Technology, Jamshedpur, Pakistan. I hope you are doing well. In today's session, we are going to start with a very important topic, that's semantics, the meaning of meaning. Semantics is actually very important, subfield within the broader science that we call linguistics. So in today's session, we will not be looking at other branches or other fields, but we will try to only look at what semantics is and what are the different, perspectives on meaning actually. So let's start. When it comes to the understanding of the notion of meaning, there are different, social theorists, literary critics, and sociologists and philosophers. They all have actually tried to, define the word meaning. What is meaning? Because meaning is very central concept in understanding the world. If we look at the overall, functioning of the world, the way it works, it is actually based on the meanings that we exchange in our daily lives. And definitely meaning is something that is at the core of social structure and human societies, and therefore this has been one of the very interesting topic to different people. But how does it start systematically? It is actually the beginning when C.K. Ogden and I.A. Richards, these are two British linguists, they wrote a book that's called The Meaning of Meaning in 1923. And in this book, actually, they gave 22 definitions of the word meaning, what meaning is. So they proposed 22 definitions. But these 22 definitions, they were like, rewording of, different, sociologists, theories, different, meanings or ideas proposed by sociologists and literary theorists and then philosophers. So just few definitions that I can provide you here to look at how they define meaning. For example, they say meaning is an intrinsic property. So meaning is an intrinsic property of a word. So for example, they see like the meaning of the word and its relation with the object is like a kind of natural connection between. For example, why do we call chair a chair? According to C.K. Ogden and I. Richard, one of the definition is like it's intrinsic property of the object to denote or to refer to what it actually should refer to. So chair is chair because it's a chair. That's a very basic concept. And this is something that I would say that comes from the Greek tradition. Plato, for example, is known for its contribution to suggest that words have actually the natural connection with the objects. Like most of the words, they are like just imitation of the natural sounds. So based on this idea, he proposed that there is a natural connection between the words and then the objects they refer to. So likewise, other definitions are like the other words and next to a word in the dictionary. So you always see that within a dictionary, there are some other words given there. So these other words are actually the meaning of the actual word that we are looking for. And that's what we have been doing. So these are just meanings. We would see that how meaning actually then develops and how different people have defined it. And other definition is the connotation of a word. And we will talk about connotation. Maybe you're already aware of it. One word has a denotation, and the same word can have a connotation as well. So connotation is actually how the meaning, acquires social, cultural, and psychological and ideological affiliation with the word, and that becomes a connotation. And then the other meaning of the meaning is the place of anything in a system. So system means maybe it is a society. Okay, now how a particular word is used in society, or if system, let's take it as a language system, then what's the meaning of that word within that language as a system? That to which the user of symbol ought to be referring, that to which the user of symbol believes himself to be referring. So this is how, from a user's point of view, user's perspective, how user actually uses a certain sign and for what purpose. So it is the meaning actually lives in the mind of the user, the mind of the speaker. But other meaning suggests that it is not in the mind of the user, but it is rather interpreter. So what interpreter actually refers to, okay, or what the interpreter believes to be referring to. So some suggest that meaning is in the mind of the user or a speaker of a particular language, while others suggest that no, it is the interpreter that actually uh, can suggest that what meaning is possible. And this is where you might see, in literature there have been various debates like the death of author. So where the meaning is not something that is coming from the user, but it is actually the something that comes from the interpreter. Now the reader is the interpreter. Now how he interprets something, that would be the true meaning. So these are possible definitions. And after that, 10 years later, after Bloomfield, uh, after C.K. Ogden and I.R. Richards, Bloomfield was an American linguist, and he came up with the idea of meaning in his book Language, that was written in 1933. And we will see that how Bloomfield actually defines language. So Bloomfield, I have just taken one extract from Bloomfield's uh, book, page number 139, and we will see that how he defines the meaning. So he suggests that we can define the meaning of a speech form accurately when this meaning has to do with some matter of which we possess scientific knowledge. So basically, Bloomfield looks at the meaning within a very, uh, strict scientific paradigm. He believes that it is the science that will determine the meaning of the words. So, for example, he suggests that if we want to understand the meaning of the word salt, then you don't have to look for, other meanings. You have to see that how the salt is defined in science. So for example, in science, it is like NaCl. So now NaCl, the scientific substitute, scientific equivalence of a word, that would be the meaning of the word. And further, he suggests that we can define the names of plants and animals by means of technical terms of botany or zoology. So we are aware that in botany and zoology, we have a specific terminology, technical terms, and that are used to refer to the common sense vocabulary that we are using every day. But at the same time, Bloomfield is well aware of the fact that we do not have, enough of the scientific vocabulary for all the words that we are using in our communication. For example, the words like love, hate, and there may be some other emotive words. There may be, a list of, the subjective terminologies which cannot have, scientific substitutes. So this is where, there can be limitation, but Bloomfield suggests that it is because science is still evolving. Science has just, started progressing, and with the passage of time, as science advances, it will be possible then to develop, a comprehensive theory of meaning based on the, scientific explanation rather than, other subjective or other, uh, human uh, related terminologies for the words. So we need to actually come up with the objective explanation rather than very subjective. So if we look at this Bloomfield's perspective, I would say that it is a very pessimistic view of the meaning. Why do I say pessimistic view? Because the statement of meaning is therefore the weak point in language study and will remain so until the human knowledge advances very far beyond its present state. Now, this is where a kind of pessimism appears, because he is looking for the scientific advancement in the human knowledge to be able to define what the meaning actually is. So this is where this pessimism appears. Bloomfield argues that true and authentic meaning is only possible through scientific authority. So there are two now thoughts here. One is this would be very difficult to wait for the scientific advancement to be able to make sense of the world. And other criticism can be why to take scientific authority as a sole criteria for defining the words, because that would be the objective meaning. And when we are relying on the science as a sole criteria, then definitely there would be the negation of human agency and human subjectivity, means how humans are actually involved in meaning making process, because humans are homo significans. And when we say that humans are homo significans, that means they are very much involved in the meaning making process. And if we believe that it is a science that is going to be defining the meaning, then this particular idea of the human communication, that is very active process, that is negated. So he was writing about the semantics when efforts for unified science were being taken. So basically, Bloomfield was influenced by a scientific revolution, and science was emerging definitely, and efforts were being made to come up with a comprehensive theory of science, and that influenced the Bloomfield as well. So there are three flaws in Bloomfield's approach. Firstly, at any given time, there are usually competing scientific accounts of the same phenomena. Which of them do we choose for ourselves? So this is again, very important that, okay, let's say for time being, let's assume that science is going to be, the sole criteria, but science not something which is like monolithic. Most other people believe that, okay, we have just one particular science, but we have actually different sciences. And the same phenomena may have, different, scientific realities, and they are always opposing scientific realities. And there we can ask ourselves that what kind of scientific account we have to take into account to define other word particularly. So, and very again important point that when we have competing scientific account, then they also evolve, okay, with the passage of time. If we take one scientific account at this stage to use it as a source for generating meaning for the words, then what will happen when that particular scientific uh, explanation about a particular phenomena that changes, that evolve, that gets modified, then the meaning of the word again would be somewhere that would not be comprehends the meaning. So we would be always in the state of confusion if we are relying on the science as a major source for the meanings. In the second place, science progresses by a continuing process of revision and clarification. Since scientific statements are naturally provisional, it is difficult to foresee a time when everyone would be sufficiently confident that no further significant reformulations are required to define the words like love and hate. So definitely when science is always in the state of revision and reformulations, so we won't be at a point where we now feel that, okay, we have reached a stage of certainty, and now from this stage we can take it as a final verdict for the words to be defined within a scientific perspective. So that's very difficult, and therefore we cannot take science as a major source of meaning. And thirdly, a definition in terms of scientific formula, such as salt and NaCl, simply exchanges one set of linguistic symbols for another. So postpones the task of semantic explication one step further. So, okay, if we just take science as a major source of meaning, then what is happening here? In relation to one word that we want to understand, we want to know the meaning of a particular word. What we are doing, we are coming up with another, scientific substitution, okay, scientific replacement that we have come up with. Now, what we are doing, we are just bringing a substitute for one word, but this is the where the problem arises. What about this particular NaCl? If we want to understand NaCl, how we would define it? Now, this is where the concept of postponement means the meaning of the words gets delayed. Means again, we will need some other scientific, substitution for this word NaCl, and then again we would need another, scientific substitution for defining that particular word. Okay, this is how the meaning would always be delayed, and it will be continued, and we won't be able to reach at a certain stage. So this is where these major flaws in Bloomfield's approach have been found. And now, if we look at the overall problem with both approaches like Ogden, Richards, and Bloomfield definition, then we need to see that the problem to the approach adopted by these semanticists arise from determination to explain semantics in terms of other scientific disciplines. Number one, even the Richards 22 definitions, they were like a rewording of technical terms of philosophers, psychologists, philologists, literary critics, and other specialists. So this is how they have their understanding or their explanation of meaning is limited, because either they have relied on the definition given by other people belonging to different fields, or they have relied on the science to be the source of meaning. So this is a major problem in their definition. So in the next session, in the next part, I will be talking about how a linguistic turn in semantics is started, and how does the meaning then come to be conceptualized as. Thank you so much.